I used to be extremely shy, introverted with a lot of insecurities.
Like all you have to do is be true to yourself, and that's where genuine respect and love comes from. And if it doesn't, you're just in front of the wrong people.
My grandma was hospitalized. It shattered everything. Oh my gosh, I'm like a failure to myself.
I would bet my life savings on you growing to however many subscribers you want to grow to, and the only thing holding you back from that is saying one day, I don't want to do this anymore. You recently hit over 20,000 subscribers on YouTube.
Well, excuse my French, but I was like, oh shit, like this.
Welcome back, everybody, to the #1 podcast in the world. I'm your host, Cal Mahdi, and I got a very special guest for you guys here today. And I know I've said that a lot, but we're reducing the testosterone a bit. Okay, so I got a female boss here for you guys today. Her name is Allison Beck, who focuses on beauty and lifestyle. But more than that, she's probably one of the most mature women I've ever met at her age. And just having natural conversations with Allison has taught me so much about life, peace, happiness, and business. So without further ado, very special welcome to you, Allison. How you doing today?
Thank you so much for having me. I'm doing really well. Honestly, I was sweating on the way here because I was expecting it to be a little bit colder in Chicago, but today is actually a really nice day. So.
Yeah, the weather's been a little bit bouncy. I think Mother Nature is dealing with that, the end of a sentence, for lack of better terms, in terms of the ups and downs when it comes to the weather. But Allison, tell us a little bit about, so right now, obviously your content is focused on beauty and lifestyle, and you recently hit over 20,000 subscribers on YouTube.
I did.
Let's go. And how did that make you feel, Allison?
It's just a very surreal moment. And even thinking about it now, like it's hard to process for me because I still feel like the girl who started her YouTube channel back over a year ago, and I knew absolutely nothing. And I started from ground zero. Like I had no pre-existing followers. I wasn't on Instagram that much, TikTok. So it was pretty much like, started from the bottom. But I feel like I need to give myself more credit for the work and the consistency that I've put in. Because along the way, you sort of just get lost in the sauce and you don't really realize how much you've learned, how much you've grown, until you actually do that reflection and be like, wow, I actually, I'm kind of good. Like, yeah.
Give yourself a pat on the back a little bit. When you say that you think you should give yourself more credit for getting to this point, which I agree to, but can you tell me more about that? Because I think that's where a lot of people fall short, is learning to celebrate the small wins that also lead to the big wins. And I would consider this a very big win. But what do you mean by that when you say that you think you should be giving yourself a little bit more credit? What did it look like in reality?
It's hard to process like that big of a number. And I mean, I don't have like 1 million subscribers or anything. It's honestly not that large in the grand scheme of things. But to me, it was such a larger milestone than hitting 10,000 for some reason. And it's a little bit weird, but I think that giving myself more credit is necessary. There's not that many things that I'm like super proud of. Mm-hmm. Maybe that's just because I am a really hard critic on myself. But, being proud of myself and acknowledging like where I've gotten so far, that is super important for the continued progression of my channel. Because if you don't celebrate those small wins, then, you're going to come to a point where it's never going to be enough.
Yeah.
And you're always going to try to be reaching, okay, now I got to hit 30K. It's not good enough. Now I got to hit 50K. So you're always going to be chasing something. But if you don't, take the time to just really celebrate that, then, you're prone to burnout, depression.
Right.
And those are all things that I'm very familiar with myself.
Yeah, and we'll talk a lot more about your story and like those phases that you had to deal with, but I think what you're talking about is very important. It's kind of like that fine balance, like that fine line between not being complacent and comfortable, but at the same time being grateful and also just getting the gratification out of reaching certain milestones in your life, because otherwise you start to lose sight of your why. Like, why are you doing all this in the first place if you're getting to certain milestones and you're not feeling anything from it? I actually saw a quote recently that I think is very relevant to this, and it was, if you numb the bad, you also numb the good, right?
Yeah.
So like when you were that girl that knew nothing about social media content creation And throughout that entire journey to becoming the boss that you are now, you likely like numbed a lot of the bad, which ended up leading to you numbing the good once you had actually reached that point. So my question to you, Allison, is that like, was this a realization that you made once you reached this goal and maybe like spent some time and then you were like, man, I really need to be more proud of myself? Or was this something that you had realized prior to this point?
Definitely it was a realization that I had I wouldn't even say when I hit 20K, because when I did, it didn't even hit me. Like I wasn't really cognizant of that number. But I would say more recently, like, you know, even to this day, I am more proud of hitting that milestone than I was when I actually did it. And that's because I've taken the time to reflect and, you know, just looking at the analytics and everything, comparing my growth and my journey from day one. I mean, it's night and day. So
yeah. What has it done for you, like being able to put yourself in a position where you are proud of getting to that point versus what it would have done for you had you just like not felt it, not sat in it, and kind of just kept driving towards that next goal? What has it done for you to be able to feel that proudness of yourself? Yeah, what has that done for you? It's
actually changed the way that I look at my channel quite significantly. So, I mean, we'll probably talk more about like strategy and everything and my perspective on my channel now. But, you know, I've sort of taken, I don't want to say take a step back, but I've sort of, you know, brought the reins in a little bit with my content. So I'm a lot more relaxed when it comes to content creation now. I think I told you before, but I was posting twice a week for over a year, which is not an easy thing to do. I will tell you that.
No, it's not.
And it was great because I was so consistent. And I think when you're starting out, you know, when you're doing content creation at first, you need to build that discipline. You need to learn what consistency feels like, or else you're not going to take it seriously. And to me, like this is my professional career. I don't really see it as a hobby. I don't see it as like a side thing. Like I'm all in with YouTube. And so, you know, being consistent with it, it really helped me get into that mindset that like, this is my full-time job. You know, I do other things outside of YouTube, but you know, this is full-time for me and I'm going to take it seriously like a real job.
Yeah, I mean, you've definitely been able to illustrate that. And that's why I'm so excited to just talk about your story, because I know that the audience to this episode are going to find so much value, because like when it came to you and your content, especially in that first year, you literally did everything from front to back. Like you not only shot all of your videos alone, you edited every single one of your videos alone. Everything from front to back was done by you, not to mention twice a week. And a lot of people stray very far away from that, right? Like, you know, sure, there's people out there who have 500,000, 1 million subscribers on YouTube, but because of what you've done in the time that since you've started up until now, if I had to put my money on it, I'd happily put my life savings on the fact that you're going to reach as many subscribers as you want to. The only thing that's going to ever keep you back from growing is simply going to be if you just decide that you don't want to do it anymore. But why do I say that? I'm friends with more content creators than I can count on two hands. I say that because I've seen your approach to it, and it's completely different. I mean, it almost humbles me when it came to my approach towards content, because I realized that, look, you really got to want this if you want to get to a certain point. And you were fully able to absorb yourself in the work that you were doing, which it could be easier when you have 20,000 subscribers. But how did you decide to do that when you had 0? Like, how did right off the bat, how long has it been since you started?
I started officially January of 2023. So it's been a little over a year.
Got it. So just a little bit over a year, and you were what, like 23 years old at the time?
No, I was actually 21.
Okay, got it. So you're 21 years old, you have 0 subscribers, your following is obviously not specific to your content. How did you build up the disposition that allowed you to just fully dedicate and commit yourself to the work that you were doing versus just being all hilly-nilly and just hoping for the best?
Yeah. I mean, not gonna lie, there was a little bit of that.
Okay.
I think having sort of, you know, just like a F it, let's just try everything. Let's just be creative. I think you need an element of that when you're first starting out, you know, just to sort of find your voice and to have fun with it. But yeah, I was definitely committed since day one. And, you know, maybe it's my personality. When I set out to do something, nothing will, you know, get in the way of me achieving my goals. So that's just how I was raised. Thank my mama for that. You know, and to me, something like, there was like a spark in my brain or in my heart that was like, this is what I'm meant to be doing. And the answer just felt so right. And I'll probably, you know, talk about this in my origin story of how I actually came to, you know, starting content creation, but it felt so right to me, and no other career path or, you know, occupation really resonated with me as much as YouTube.
Yeah.
So, you know, I bought my first camera pretty much right when I graduated from college, and it's just been, you know, a crazy roller coaster since then.
Yeah, I mean, looking back on it now, I can't imagine how it feels, but like, there's no chance that 1 year since you started was all sunshine and rainbows. And we'll definitely talk about the trials and tribulations that you experienced throughout that 1 year. But I want to spend a little bit of time talking about that origin story. How did you get to that point since January of 2023? What did everything before that look like for you? Starting from like when you were in high school, who is Allison Beck?
Yeah, okay. Well, buckle up because it's going to be a pretty long ride. But, you know, let's just start with me, like how I came into this world. I've always been like an artistic person. I come from a family of the opposite. My mom was a pharmacist, worked at Johnson & Johnson. She recently retired, so good for her. And my dad's a dentist, so two people in like the medical field. Brother went to school for like management information systems, so he's more like techie. And then my grandmothers are business owners. So, wow. You know, me suddenly being like, oh, I like acting. It was kind of like interesting, but I'm so thankful that my parents have always been so supportive of me since day one. Whatever I wanted to do, whether it was voice lessons, cooking classes, ballet, hip hop class, like they've always been so supportive of me. And so, you know, in high school and everything, I was just acting. I've been acting, or I was acting for about like 15 years.
Wow.
Till I started taking YouTube seriously. And I actually had an agency here in Chicago that I was a part of for a very, very long time. So, you know, because I was doing this acting thing and I was doing theater in high school and middle school, it just made sense for me to, you know, go into college doing that. So, applied to, I don't even remember how many schools I applied to, but did the whole auditions for those particular schools. And then I got into USC for theater, which was like a huge, huge achievement for me.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So, you know, went to school for acting and one of the best schools for it in the country. And I made a lot of great experiences, great friends, memories there. And then sometime in my junior year of college, this was like right after COVID. So all the students like moved back into campus. And I always had a work study going to school. I don't know if you know what that is, but it's like where you kind of have to get a job as a student to supplement your financial aid. And I had like little part-time things the previous years, but I discovered on their career portal for students, I don't even remember what it was called, but it definitely wasn't anything about like Instagram or like TikTok. It just said like communication something. Maybe there was some social media in there and I'm like, oh, this sounds interesting. So I applied. And you know, I got the job, but when I got it, I didn't even know like what they were going to have me do. It was under the student affairs department. And they basically told me, you're going to be creating a TikTok and Instagram account for USC Student Life, which is basically like helping attract prospective students, raising school spirit, and just like making videos for students by students. And I was like, okay, but you know, we were able to grow those channels, and eventually we hired more people. I became the lead of content development for USC Student Life, and I think when I was there, we had about 20 other students, and I was helping to manage them. And
starting with just you.
Me and like, a few other people.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was quite a stretch for me because I never had any experience with social media. I was a theater kid. So I knew how to entertain people, but when it came to like editing videos and filming stuff, like that wasn't my forte. But it was great because I learned all of that on the job and, trying to just, manage these people and also create something so fun and for the students, it was such a fun opportunity for me. And that is when I fell in love with social media. And I don't know what it was specifically. I think because it just allowed me to be so creative and I had so much creative freedom doing it. And with acting, it never felt like that. Because you're always following the direction of the directors, following a script, and as an actor, you don't have as much autonomy, as much power. And so I was never a multi-hyphenated, performer where I was like writing scripts and I was producing. I was just, I just like acting. But with social media, it was like everything that I felt like I was missing with acting. I was able to, act in the videos. I was able to film them and like, edit them. And I sort of found my voice through it. And it sort of made me question, oh my gosh, I've been going to school for acting for so long. Like, what am I going to do? But I decided like, okay, I just need to make this leap of faith because I knew I didn't want to be stuck in something that I would later regret. And for acting, I mean, if any of you guys are in that industry, you know that it could take you 5, 10, 20 years to see your big break. A lot of the time it's not up to you if you get the job. So I didn't want to wait for somebody to give me that opportunity to seek other people's approval. I wanted to just make those opportunities for myself. So when I graduated college, I was kind of thinking like, should I do TikTok? Should I do Instagram? Or should I do YouTube? And I've always wanted to do YouTube. And people tell me I have a personality for YouTube. So I'm just like, okay, whatever. Bought my first camera and yeah, here we are.
The rest is history. So like, was your personality always this charismatic and like open-minded and just like have you always had this energy, or before you found your passion in social media, was it different at all?
Yeah, I think, I've always been acting. And so in front of the camera or, talking to people, I can, put on a persona or I can step into character, if you will. But me naturally, I used to be extremely, extremely shy and introverted with a lot of insecurities. I still have insecurities now, but it was a lot more back then. So, obviously doing YouTube and putting myself out there, it helps me practice to, be more extroverted and also to, make sure that I practice what I preach, because in my videos, I tell like my subscribers, like, encouraging them to have more self-confidence, be more vocal. And that's something that I, every day I try to practice. So.
Yeah, I mean, you do give off that energy, like even for me, like just I remember having a good conversation with you for the very first time when we had went to dinner with a few friends along with Renzo and them. And the conversation that I had with you alone about your story, where I was like, I need to get you onto the pod. You just kind of give off this like very motivational energy to where it's inspiring, honestly. But to look back to like before you were able to develop those traits and find your voice and become more confident, for the girl or the guy that might be listening to this who wants to try to find their voice, who doesn't know if what they've been doing for the past 5 to 10 years is truly right for them, what were some of those insecurities that you were dealing with that you think like they could probably relate to in that same position?
Yeah, definitely feeling as though you're not enough. That's such a common insecurity, feeling like, having low self-worth. And that all comes from childhood because there's somebody in your life telling you you're not good enough, you'll never make it. Or, even your peers around you saying those things, or you feeling like you're behind. And I definitely felt that a lot in college. Being the way that I am, female, Asian, American girl, there are a lot more opportunities in the entertainment industry now, which I'm super grateful about. But, growing up, I didn't really understand that because of the way that I look or because of the way that I am, sometimes that means like you won't get that opportunity.
Right.
And to me, like it was a hard pill to swallow because I always knew that I was talented, but you really start to question your worth and your talent and skill when, you know, you just face rejection after rejection after rejection. So definitely had to work through that I am good enough and that there is nobody else like me. There are people who maybe do similar things or have similar personalities, but they will never, ever be like me. So yeah, definitely the self-worth and, you know, just being true to yourself is something that I keep learning to this day. And I try to keep in the back of my mind because with all the creators out there, all the influencers, it is so easy to just like adopt somebody else's personality because it works for them.
Yeah.
But you'll notice that if you try to replicate that in your own videos or in your own content, it doesn't hit the same. And then you're like, well, why? If I'm following their strategy, like whatever. But you have to realize that it is not natural to you.
Yeah.
So to me, that was something I had to learn very early on is like, yes, you can draw inspiration from these people. You can, you know, maybe replicate something, but if you adopt their entire personality, adopt their entire vocabulary, you know, when it comes out of your mouth, it's not going to hit the same.
Yeah.
And your audience will definitely recognize that.
Yeah, it just doesn't come out right. I think, to be honest with you, Allison, like staying true to myself is to this day, I mean, every single day I have to work on that, keep it in the back of my head and remind me of it because I was never an actor, but I was always the guy that would even gloat, like would make it a kind of like an attractive trait. Like I would talk about it as if it was a good thing that I can alter my personality to please whoever I was in front of, right? And that's actually like the saddest thing that you could do ever because you find yourself in situations, whether they love you or they hate you, either side of it is for the wrong reason. Because you're not being true to who you are. So if they love you, it's for the wrong reasons. And if they hate you, it's also for the wrong reasons. But you're bringing yourself farther and farther away from your worth when you don't stay true to yourself. You know, and a lot of times when people like feel like they're not enough, right? They try to like put on this character and do a little bit too much to like present themselves as if they are enough to please whoever they're in front of when usually like all you have to do is be true to yourself. And that's where genuine respect and love comes from. And if it doesn't, you're just in front of the wrong people, you know? So I think that's something that definitely a lot of people could struggle with, but I personally know that wasn't the end to your struggles. Although you did choose to dive into content creation at that point and follow your dreams of starting in YouTube. What did it look like for you when you had initially started? So it's January of 2023. You're out of college. This is your first year out of college?
Yeah, so I actually graduated a semester early.
Beautiful.
So yeah, that fall to winter semester was basically like my last, you know, moments in college. And then when I moved back home, you know, to Chicago in January or in December, I was like, okay, so this is start of my post-grad life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what did you get your degree in?
Theater.
And like in December of 2023, did you know you were going to go into content creation for your own personal brand, or did you think you were going to get a job still in theater?
Yeah, I definitely still wanted to keep theater in the back pocket because I think it's just a really good skill that I have. And you know, who knows, maybe it might come into play. I might be on a TV show pretty soon, but I definitely knew that I wanted to take a break from acting and I just wanted to focus solely on content. So yeah, December of 2022, I believe, that was when I was sort of, I don't know if I was really like creating a strategy or like a really specific plan, but I was putting the pieces together. I'm like, okay, you know, clean up my YouTube channel, buy the camera, buy some basic equipment, and then let's just hit the ground running.
One thing I'll say about this, and I just want you to remember us having this conversation. Obviously, like you might have had a dream a long time ago to become an actress or do these big TV commercials or be on a big TV show. And although it may, like from the outside looking in, seem like you have pivoted away from that with focusing on content in your own personal brand, I personally think you're going to grow enough to be able to be on whatever the fuck TV show or commercial you want to because of your content creation, which will actually lead back into that. And I don't think that could have ever happened if you tried to just stick to what you thought you were supposed to do versus what brought out the creative energy and freedom in you which was content creation.
Yeah.
But let's talk about like once you actually decided to start in January of 2023, you got your camera, you got your equipment, everything is lined up. How did you actually take action, like to create your first video? How did you actually start? Because I think that's the hardest part. I just went through that phase, is like, how do you start? Camera goes up for the first time, you're like, all right. It's almost as if I forgot to speak English.
I want to say I just started. Like I just did it.
Yeah.
And maybe because I have a previous experience with being in front of the camera, I think that's what turns a lot of people away and, you know, makes them really scared is, oh my gosh, I've never been in front of a camera before. I've never been filmed. I don't even know what I'm doing. Like, what am I supposed to say? But to me, it was very easy because I already had that previous experience from acting. So it was kind of like transitioning. It felt almost easier because there was no script to follow. I didn't have to stand, you know, in specific places. All that came from myself.
Wow.
So it was honestly a very like intimate experience for me, just, you know, vlogging by myself and filming myself. And there was no other influences or people to tell me like, oh, you're doing something wrong, or you should do it like this. So when I set out, I decided, okay, 2 videos per week seems like a good amount for me. And now looking back, I'm like, that was a lot. It's a lot to most people. Most YouTubers just post like once a week, bi-weekly, whatever. But I'm like, okay, like this seems doable. And I just wanted to gain traction as fast as possible. So I'm like, okay, 2 videos per week. And I created like a schedule. Okay, I'll post my vlogs on Sunday because I always knew I wanted to vlog, and then post like beauty or lifestyle topic videos on Wednesday. So that was basically my schedule, and I kept it for a very long time until very recently. And at the same time, while starting this YouTube channel, I was getting my cosmetology license. So there was like a whole bunch of things going on, and then also trying to like balance life being back home, because I'm sure as anybody knows, like you kind of feel like you're back in high school when you move back into your parents' house. And that also was another insecurity for me, because all my friends who were not doing what I was doing, they had jobs lined up after college. They got an apartment in downtown LA. They were living their real adult post-grad life. And to me, I felt like I went backwards a little bit. But looking back now, I'm so grateful that I did decide to move back home and to start my content journey then, because, there was no better time to do it.
Yeah.
And especially post-grad, it's like you don't have, that opportunity again. So you might as well take advantage of it.
Yeah, I think there's like a very important element here when it came to the way that you started, because like, sure, you had a little bit of willy-nilly in there in terms of like what you were going to record, but you still treated it as if you were starting a legitimate business.
Yes.
In terms of the planning, the operations behind it, and the commitment, most importantly, because for anyone that has never tried content creation, they can think about 2 videos and see that they're 2 15-minute videos and maybe think that it takes an hour each. 1 fucking video a week, if you're trying to put out a good video, is like a 40-hour job. Almost. Content creation is very, very difficult. So for you to be that committed at that point in your life while also trying to get your cosmetology license, that's where the maturity that I've been able to like realize from you comes into play. But when you say that like you were feeling a lot of doubt because of the fact that you saw what everybody else with your age was doing at that time versus the position that you were in, can you tell me more about like how that made you feel, especially towards what you were trying to do? Did it take away from like your belief in it at all? Did it ever make you reconsider or second guess? How did you get past those feelings and kind of overcome them?
Yeah, I think it definitely made me very discouraged at times, especially when I would pour my heart and soul into my 2 videos and then they'd get like 100 views. I was like, this is going to take a lot more work and time than I thought. And again, just, being on social media and seeing what other people are doing and their opportunities with these big companies, I'm like, did I make the wrong mistake? Or did I make the wrong choice? Was this a mistake? And sometimes I still feel that, or I still have those thoughts, and that's completely normal because everybody is on their own path. And that's what I had to realize, is that we're all put on this earth for a different reason. Some people are meant to work the 9 to 5. Some people are meant to, work at a company. Some people are meant to be an entrepreneur, a content creator. And like, those are just our different little things. And there's nothing wrong with either of them. And so, yeah, it was a little bit of a reality check for me that this is going to be a lot harder and it's going to take a lot more out of me than I initially thought if I wanted to take it seriously, which I did.
Yeah.
But that was also motivation for me to keep going because I'm a big believer in just plain old hard work.
Yeah.
And hard work will only take you so far, you know? But on top of that, you also need to think about, okay, like the future and like where you're actually going to go, because yeah, you can keep grinding away, checking along, but like what is the end goal? And to me, like I've never been like that kind of person, which sounds funny to say, but I love the work itself. I get lost in the process. I love editing. People clown me all the time. You're like, why do you like it? And I don't know. I really like having that, you know, that creative power and just making like a whole bunch of raw footage into something super cool and super amazing. So yeah, like I love just the work itself. I love filming, but when it came to deciding, okay, like what are the next steps? Like where do I see my channel in like 10 years? That is something that I really needed to work on for myself, because it's not just about like the day-to-day activities, but it's about where you're trying to go and who you're trying to be.
Your vision, your purpose. Like I always say, like hard work, determination, consistency, all of those things matter, but they'll never take you to success unless you have a purpose.
Yeah.
And I wanted to ask you, like, why do you think you didn't give up? And most of the time it's because of having a strong enough purpose. But for you, like, I know what it feels in those moments, literally where you're just like, fuck, like, should I even be doing this right now? Like, I could be living such a simple life where I'm peaceful and whatever. And although you live that life, and for people like you and I and all of our friends, like, you're never going to be content. But for you, like, why did you not give up in those moments when it just made so much more sense to give up than to keep going?
Yeah, I think it goes back to, you know, my purpose, like what you said, my principles, my values. I actually created a business plan for my channel, which is a little bit weird. I don't think most people do that, but it does help you sort of hone in on like what your mission is, who your audience is, what the competition is out there, and just like having that written down somewhere, you can always go back to it and remind yourself of why you're doing it and like what brought you here in the first place. So for me, the whole mission of my channel is to, you know, offer that life advice, beauty advice, offer confidence tips to my audience, because there's a lot of insecurity out there, and a lot of really lonely people.
Yeah.
And also to create that inclusive community, because, you know, growing up, there was nobody like who really looked like me doing what I do now. Obviously now there's like so many people doing it, but I really want to offer like a fresh perspective on life and be a big sister figure to my subscribers, because I think there's a lot of comparison and people, you know, showing off their extravagant life and them being up here, and then their followers are like, oh, I feel like I will never be as good as you. But to me, I want it to feel like we're on FaceTime. I want to be like a best friend to you, and we're equal. Like I'm not better than my subscribers, and they're not better than me. Like we're the same level. So that is my whole mission, and that is what drives me every day, and something to always remind myself of, you know, why I'm doing it and why I continue to turn on my camera and to film.
Yeah, if you can't answer that question, like why, you're just never going to do it long enough. You know what I mean? And obviously that's the reason that you didn't give up. But I know I keep highlighting this. I just want to say it again because of how important it is. Yeah, you're right. Like most people don't build a business plan for their channel. But that's exactly what I'm talking about when I say that your approach to your channel is why I would bet my life savings on you growing to however many subscribers you want to grow to. And the only thing holding you back from that is saying one day, I don't want to do this anymore. Right? It's because of your approach, because of the way that you treated it, how much you actually cared, and how much intent there was within your channel. It wasn't about becoming famous or people knowing you or getting people to say nice things to you. It was about that purpose. It was about being that big sister to all those people who were lonely out there. And you're right. There's way too much comparison that we're exposed to in today's world, starting with the fact that social media exists, right? Because you, for example, could have been at the point where you're only getting 100 views, you have less than 100 subscribers on your channel, And then you're looking at another girl who has over 100,000 subscribers and you're just like, well, shit, like, fuck, like she's better than I am. I'm not good enough to be at her level. And I think that there's someone that can watching this that can look at you the exact same way. Oh, she has 20,000 subscribers. Like I've been trying to do this for 6 months to 8 months and it's not working out for me. And it worked out for Allison. But what they don't know is everything that happened throughout that year that led to you getting to this point, which is that 20,000 subscribers. And that's the problem with comparison in today's world. What you're seeing is not always what it was before. Actually, it's always not what it was before, right? Someone can look at you today and say, she has 20,000 followers, she's better than I am, she's naturally confident, but they don't know what you had to go through to get to that point. So now I'd honestly like to tell them what you had to go through so that they know if they're watching this right now and they don't even have a YouTube channel, they very well can get to where you are today. And I'd like to just focus in on that year and what it looked like for you to get to this point. So like, can you talk to me about what that journey looked like for you? And obviously I know it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows, but a lot of people might expect that it was. So what was that like for you getting to this 20K?
Well, I need to jog my memory a little bit. Renzo will tell you that I actually don't have photographic memory, or my memory is just really, really bad. But, you know, I do remember it just being a very isolating process. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I was very lonely for a long time. I just, you know, put my head down, focus on YouTube, and I wasn't really worrying about anything else, wasn't really going out, hanging out with friends, because again, all my friends were out in LA, so it was pretty much like, you know, the only person, you know, back home. And even people from high school, like they went to separate colleges, made their own friends there. So yeah, I was just very lonely. But at the time, I wasn't really aware of it because I was so passionate about YouTube. And
yeah,
I'm like, the only person I need is YouTube and all my subscribers, and that's it. But yeah, I would say like, I wasn't really thinking about views. I wasn't really thinking about performance necessarily, or how many impressions I have, or you know, stats and everything. I was just creating. I'm like, I love doing this, and so I'm just gonna, you know, keep making videos, keep filming, keep trying different topics, see what I like talking about. And so the first few months of when I started was basically just like, F it, just like just doing whatever I wanted, but still keeping that consistency. You know, posting twice a week. Honestly, that continued for the majority of the year. You know, just obviously still keeping my subscribers in mind, sticking to beauty and lifestyle content because I knew that's what people wanted to see. Yes, I was making videos for myself because I like doing what I'm doing. Mm-hmm. But if I wasn't offering value or advice or something for the audience, no one's gonna watch. So what's the point of me posting videos for myself if I'm the only one who watches them? So it was a balance, right?
Okay.
You have to make videos that you obviously enjoy, but at the same time, make sure that it's what people want to see, because, you know, you want to expand your reach as far as possible. So I did fashion, I did cooking. My In My 20s vlog series was like every single week, and there were a lot of cycles of burnout, mm-hmm. where I was, you know, super passionate, super, you know, high energy for a few weeks, and then I get super burnt out. And I would say like this typically happened around maybe like summer or like fall-ish, where, you know, you're super passionate and then boom, and like I can't do this anymore.
What is that? What did that feel like? What did that look like when you burnt out in those phases?
Just really, really exhausted. But I didn't allow myself to take a break, which is what I should have done, because I'm like, I made this commitment to myself. I'm going to post twice a week. I'm like, my subscribers are counting on me, even though nobody cared if I posted. In my mind, I'm like, that is my mindset. Like, someone out there is going to be like, where's Allison's video? Like, I was really looking forward to watching her video. And to me, that was my motivation for just, I have to get it out there.
Yeah.
Even if I'm super stressed, super tired, someone out there is counting on me and I need to deliver. That was like my standard that I wasn't going to fall short of. So just push through the burnout. But as we all know, if you don't like fully recover, mm-hmm. it's just going to happen again,
yeah.
and again and again and again with like shorter intervals in between. So yeah, I would say definitely by winter of, what was it, last year? That was when I probably felt the most like dread towards content.
I want to pause you here real quick because I want to highlight a few things. Number one, throughout each of those phases of burnout, you never stopped posting 2 videos a week once throughout that entire year, right? So you want to take away the burnout. You want to take away the, you know, the things that we'll talk about soon after. You never fucking stopped. And that's what most people can't do. Like for 365 days in a row, you posted 2 videos a week, no matter what was going on in your life. You didn't make a single excuse. And you put your subscribers, who weren't that much at the time, ahead of yourself. And maybe that wasn't the right decision from a personal health standpoint. But my point is that your dedication to your commitment was at the highest level it could possibly be. And that alone is what most people aren't willing to do. Then the other thing that I want to highlight is that when you had gotten to this point in the winter of last year where you were dreading content the most, I'm going to assume that you were also farther in your content than you've ever been before, meaning like you had more subscribers than you ever had in the past. Your channel was probably performing as better than it ever had before, yet you were dreading content the most that you ever had. Because this is the shit that most people don't see, you know? Like at that point, if you had had 10,000 subscribers, for example, on that day where you're dreading content more than you ever have before, you want to give up more than you ever have before, you're sad, you're depressed, you're tired, someone could watch your video that you just put out and say, she's so much better than me. She doesn't have the insecurities that I have. She doesn't deal with the emotions that I deal with. They just don't know.
Yeah.
So tell us about that time, like in the winter of last year, you were at the highest level you had ever been at when it came to your content and your performance, but where was Allison Beck?
Yeah, she was just really, really freaking tired. I mean, Renza could tell you, I would literally, like, we'd be on FaceTime and I'd just be bawling my eyes out. Like, I'm so lost. I don't know what I'm doing. I just feel like I'm putting in so much work, but I'm not seeing the results. And at that point, like, I wasn't blind to how far my channel was, how many subscribers I had, and views. Because at that point, I'm like, okay, I've been doing this for a year now. Like, I need to be seeing some progress. Like, that was when I'm like, okay, you know, it's actually time to focus on analytics and focus on how I can optimize things, because I was just so sick of, you know, putting in all this work, and then getting like nothing back. It's very frustrating. And, you know, again, I don't make content for views. I don't make like clickbaity stuff, but at the same time, it's like, well, I'm not reaching as many people as I want to be reaching. And that to me hurts. Because there's so many people out there that could benefit from this content, but they're just not seeing it. So it was very frustrating to me. And I'm like, okay, I need to crack this code, because like something is just not working and I can't like go on doing like this and killing myself over this. So it was, very, very hopeless. A lot of hopeless feelings, disappointment in myself, disappointment in my channel, even though like what you said, it was so, you know, I had grown so much. I couldn't see that. Right? It's like when someone, you get like 5 compliments, but 1 insult like ruins your day. It's like that. You know, you only focus on the negative. So actually January of this year, so still winter time, my grandma was hospitalized, and she is the biggest like person in my life. You know, she raised me essentially because my mom was working full time. Both my parents were working. So she would drive me to ice skating practice and pick me up from school, make me food. We actually slept in the same bed for a long time. Like, we're that close. Wow. And she's still that person to me. And, you know, when her health started to rapidly decline in January of this year, it shattered everything. And family has always been so important to me, more important than anything else, than my career, than my friends, whatever. And it was honestly really, really hard to post content at the time. And also I was going on a month-long detox as well, where I was eating only like raw foods and then just juicing. Wow. So I was physically depleted, mentally so drained, and emotionally so torn with my grandma's health. So there was actually 1 week, I think, in January that I didn't post a video. like that week I didn't post on Sunday, didn't post on Wednesday, because I was like, I need to put my grandma first and spend this time with her. My channel will still be there. I need to go do this. And even that, like, even though I knew I should be doing that, it was still so scary to me.
Yeah.
Because I kept this streak, if you will, for so long. It's like, oh my gosh, I'm like a failure to myself. I wasn't able to post. But you know what's so funny is like, after that week, when I did post my next videos, they took off, which is absolutely, like, I was shocked. I'm like, how do I take a week off, don't post anything, and then the next time I post, it does so much better? And I was thinking about it, and, you know, by giving myself that break, by giving myself the time to just heal physically, emotionally, and mentally, I came at my channel with a whole, like, new, fresh perspective. And that wouldn't have happened if I kept just chugging through and just, you know, kept grinding. And so it sort of planted a seed in my mind that, this whole like giving myself breaks and like prioritizing me and self-care, maybe this could work. So that was actually when I started looking for editors through Upwork. And I mean, long story short, there was a whole ordeal with that where I just like did not meet the right people. And
well, you did it for so long. You had standards for it, you know? Exactly.
And I realized like no one is ever going to like value my content as much as me, obviously, because I'm the creator. And so I went back to editing my own stuff, but now I'm actually only posting once a week, which is crazy to say because like I've always been known for posting twice a week.
Right.
But my channel is actually like doing the best it's ever been doing. And even when I was on vacation in Tulum for an entire week, I didn't post at all. Channel still like doing amazing. And so it confirms that notion that like when you give yourself time to put like your best foot forward, make the best quality content, not the quantity, like that's what people value and that's what they want to see.
Yep.
So it's just a win-win situation.
It's crazy because it's like you were in that moment in January where your grandmother, who's one of the most important people to you in your entire life, was hospitalized, and taking a week off so that you can prioritize that made you feel like you were a failure to yourself, when without realizing it, had you not taken that week off, that's what would have made you a failure to yourself. But I want to ask, you know, like you went through a whole 2-month time frame where for the most part you were still posting videos, but it sounds like, I mean, you were depressed, you obviously weren't happy, you were exhausted, you were tired, you were feeling hopeless. How did all of those emotions affect not your content, because we know that it affected your content because you started performing a lot better after, but how did it affect everything else in your life, your relationships, your life in general? What were the side effects of going through those phases without prioritizing yourself so that you can heal?
Yeah, I was not a pleasant person. Not a pleasant person, you know, to my boyfriend, to my parents, to just everybody in my life, because, you know, while I was in those dark moments, content was still number one for me. It was the most important relationship in my life. And so like almost everything came after it. So yeah, just very moody. Things would just irk me so bad, like things that don't even have anything to do with content creation, so unrelated, but it would just really like make me upset. I was not happy, and also didn't really want to socialize as well, because while being so exhausted with filming and content, I'm like, I can't deal with people right now.
Yeah.
So it was, I would say it was more than 2 months. It was just, again, cyclical. So this would happen like every month, it seemed like, for a very, very long time, of just like me being in the dumps. So.
Yeah. Honestly, like Allison, obviously we weren't friends at that point of your life, but being friends with you now and just hearing you talk about who you were throughout those phases, it's unbelievable to me, because like you are the energy in most situations that we're all hanging out with each other, and you are the joy, and you are the social, the one who kind of like socializes with everyone and brings that energy. So to hear that you were like going through those phases of your life where it sounds like you were so far from who you are, at least for like who I know you to be, who likely your subscribers know you to be, who your boyfriend, who your parents know you to be. I couldn't be happier to just understand not just how you were able to overcome those things, but just to know that you have, because I mean, who you are today is just such a powerful individual that can impact so many people's lives. And if you were to ever stray very far away from that, I think it would be a loss to the entire society. So it's just awesome hearing that you were able to overcome that. Would you say that was like a rock bottom moment for you when your grandma was hospitalized?
Absolutely. I've never felt like that before, where everything in my life just seemed to be crumbling. And I mean, I'm sure, like, as you know, or as anybody knows, when someone in your family or someone you're really close to is sick, or, you know, there's like a problem, that's all you can think of. And it consumed me. It consumed my content. I had no desire to film at all. Still forced myself to, but it didn't feel true to me. And my subscribers could definitely sense that. And so that month of January was probably one of the worst moments of my life. But the great thing that came out of that is that I was able to learn what taking care of myself can do, the benefit, not only for myself, but for my channel, for everything else in my life. Because if I am not good, then everything I will produce or anybody that I will interact with will also not be good.
Yeah.
So in order to fix those holes in the other aspects of my life, I had to fix what was going on inside of here and fix that insecurity that I'm not good enough if I don't post twice a week.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so interesting because like I have the pleasure of not only being friends with, but also because of this podcast, talking to so many super successful young online business owners, but also content creators. And like I said, like what people don't see versus seeing how well they're doing now is those rock bottom moments. And every single one that I've spoken to has had that rock bottom moment. And not only have they had that moment, but also that's the changing point for every single one of them. Like not a single one of them talked about that rock bottom moment and then there wasn't a light very shortly after that. So I think that's something that like everyone should remember, is that if they feel like they're anywhere near one of those rock bottom moments in their life, I mean, if it really is rock bottom, the only direction you can go is up.
Right.
And for most of the times, like you do go up after being in that rock bottom moment. I want to ask you something though. If you can talk to Allison in that moment in January where she was at the lowest point of her life, and you could say something to Allison at that point, what would you say to her, knowing what you know now?
I probably would tell her that nothing else matters in this world except myself and the close people around me, because there's a lot of distractions out there and a lot of things that we place so much importance on when in reality, it doesn't matter. You know, tomorrow it's not going to matter. Next week it won't matter. 3 months from now, it's not going to matter. So like making sure that you focus on, you know, what's going on with you, with myself, and then what's going on with like my family, the people that I'm close to, is like those relationships with them and with myself is what we leave this earth with, not with what we've done, not with, you know, how much money we have or whatever, but it's with how we made other people feel and how I made myself feel in that moment.
Yeah.
And so I'd tell her that like, it's gonna be like, there's a light at the end of this tunnel. You need to push through to get there. Because I think everybody goes through something. Everybody has, you know, problems. Everybody goes through like really dark moments, but don't dwell in that because it gets better.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's very powerful. And I think that like, it's just hard to see that when you're in those moments. You probably didn't see it. I know that when I hit rock bottom, I definitely didn't see it, but you're right. And it's the thing is too, is that when you say like nothing else matters, that doesn't mean that your content didn't matter. It like literally prioritizing yourself and the people you cared about most is what elevated your content to the level that you always wanted it to be. Yeah. Right? It was just your perspective was wrong. Like most of us, most of our perspectives are without having to go through those trials and tribulations. You know, I think to rock bottom sometimes is if they were a person, like if rock bottom was a person, kind of like the Grim Reaper that came into my life, I would say nothing but thank you to them. I would have nothing but gratitude, because rock bottom taught me lessons that I would have never learned from any book or mentor or anybody. And those lessons are the most valuable lessons that I've ever learned. And I know that you can relate to that as well. But at the very least, this is where things started to get a lot better for you, which is what I've noticed with every successful content creator and online business owner. When they hit that rock bottom, it's the lowest point of their entire lives. Shortly after they get to, it's like almost as if they're here, they go down, and then they skyrocket up to where they've always wanted to be.
Yeah.
So what did that feel like for you once you finally started to see that success? Your subscribers started growing. You finally hit that 20K. And how was your, I'm assuming you didn't go through those ups and downs anymore with your kind of like your emotions and the burnout. So what did things start looking like for you after hitting rock bottom?
Well, excuse my French, but I was like, oh shit, like this actually, like, this is so much better. This actually works. Because once I realized that, okay, giving myself this break that was much needed, you know, actually propels my content and makes me approach it with a much fresher, you know, viewpoint. Like I was able to just really reflect on, okay, what are the topics that I love talking about, the ones that excite me the most, and what are the topics my audience wants to see. And so, you know, by allowing myself that time, now that I'm only posting once a week, I'm able to look at bigger picture stuff to really, you know, elevate my content, elevate my channel, where I wasn't able to do before because I was so focused on the nitty gritty of things. There was no time to look at analytics or brainstorm topic ideas, which is part of the reason why I wasn't growing like I am now. So, you know, now that I'm able to look at things from a bigger picture standpoint and see, okay, these are the topics, actually scripting out some of those things and giving myself time to just rest in between, that has made my content so much more valuable because I'm not posting just to post anymore. It's not about the quantity. It's about what I'm actually bringing to these videos, how I'm saying these things, and my energy. That is super, super important. So
the value. Yeah, like the power of your channel will only be as powerful as you as an individual.
Yeah. Correct.
And I think like everything you dealt with helped you to realize that. But do you have any like, now that we know that you've gotten to that 20K subscribers and you're going to continue to grow, that's without a doubt, what are some like strategies or tips that you can give to someone who wants to start with creating content, or maybe they already do have their YouTube channel, but they haven't necessarily been able to grow? What are some actual like strategies and tips that you would give to someone who's looking to grow in their content?
Well, first I would say you could get lost in, oh, I need to buy the most expensive camera. I need to buy the most expensive lights. Like I need to just get all the top-notch equipment that like super professional content creators have. You don't need to. You could if you have the money, you have those resources. But I mean, again, I started with a Canon M50. It's like a $600 camera. Gotcha. I had like a light from Amazon, you know, just very basic stuff, and that was all I needed. You don't really need all the frills and the whistles and everything. Just have, you know, basic camera. It doesn't need to be like super expensive, but because it's what, again, you bring to the table. So definitely just focus on the content itself, not about the equipment necessarily. And then once you get bigger, then you could upgrade to better things. My second tip is, yes, be consistent, as I am the queen of consistency to a certain extent, right?
Yeah.
I think, again, it was really good for me to not force myself to post, but hold that standard because it trained me. It gave me the discipline that I needed. I think everybody needs if they're going to, you know, make a career out of this. If you're not consistent, then you're not building that trust with your subscribers or with your followers. You need to build that relationship, and you need to tell them like, you know, hey, this is what I'm going to be doing, how often you should expect posts from me. And then you train your audience essentially. So I think that's really, really important. And then when you actually build a name for yourself or you gain a larger following, that's when you can kind of scale back or bring the reins in a little bit. Be like, okay, now I'm going to, you know, focus more on this kind of content, maybe not do that content as much. And speaking of that, again, I kept my In My 20s vlog series for a very, very long time, even though it was literally not getting me any views. I personally love vlogging just for myself, just to document stuff. I think, you know, allowing my subscribers to see like a more personal, intimate side of me is also very fun. But at the same time, it was taking away from the topic videos that were doing the best for me and that were bringing in newer people to my channel, people discovering me. And so I had to make an executive decision to be like, okay, you know, I'm not going to post vlogs every single week. I'm really going to spend my time on my topic videos because people seem to like them more.
That's what they wanted.
That's exactly. The audience is telling me what they want to see.
Right.
So I need to listen and I need to do that and put more energy towards those videos. That's not to say that I'll never post a vlog again, but it's not as high of a priority for me. And it also gives myself more of a break because I used to post like weekly vlogs, and I didn't realize this until much later, but a lot YouTubers do not necessarily film themselves every single day for a weekly vlog. A lot of them film just like, you know, for one day, but for the entire day, or they call that the weekly vlog.
Yeah.
And, you know, me, I'm like, okay, I need to actually show them what I do every single day for 7 days. And that really burnt me out because I wasn't giving myself that break.
For sure, yeah, your
for
whole
filming.
life was it.
And so when I got to Wednesday, or when I got to filming my Wednesday video, I'd be so tired. I'm like, I've been filming this entire week so far. So it really does, you know, open up more mental space for me and allows me to just, again, focus that energy towards the videos that people want to see.
Those are some really, really good tips, ones that I've struggled with. Number one, the first tip you gave us was to not get hung up too much on the material or the equipment and to just start, basically.
Yeah.
I did that for a very long time, was like, oh, I need at least like an EOS 90D, like a Canon camera or whatever before I start. Then I saw your boyfriend Renzo pulling his iPhone out of his pocket whenever he thinks of an idea and getting, you know, over 400,000 followers, not to mention the views. So the people out there that are doing it, not all of them have the expensive cameras, even though he did at one point, but he could still see the results because the content is what matters most. So tip number one, don't focus on the equipment, just start. Content is what matters most. Tip number two was consistency, which I actually have a question for you on. So we talked about how in the beginning you decided you were going to post 2 days a week and you committed to that and you did it for an entire year. But what if I were to ask you like, okay, Allison, I want to commit to being consistent, but how consistent do I need to be? Like, what's the minimum? I'm just starting. What would you advise someone to post like from a consistency standpoint if they want to know like how consistent do they actually need to be?
Yeah.
Do you have any advice for that?
I don't know if I can give a specific number or a rate that someone should be posting because it's very personal. It's very, you know, it's up to the creator. But I will say post as many videos that you can while still being sustainable. So for me, doing 2 videos a week was sustainable for a long time until it wasn't anymore.
Right.
And that's when I had to change my trajectory a little bit. I had to sort of tweak my course of action. So I'll say that do whatever is sustainable for you.
Yeah, I kind of like that you didn't give a cookie cutter response because like you could have said, yeah, at least once a week. There's no way that works for everyone. Yeah. And that's why like after you answer that question, I'm realizing your explanation is what you should focus on more than like the actual number, because your explanation was that all you need to do is connect with your audience deep enough to where you're training them to know what to expect from you. And whether that's you posting once a month or 4 times a month, as long as you're connected with your audience enough for them to know what to expect from you, then that's all that matters, right? What about like the concept of like making sure that you're actually providing real value? Do you have any advice on that side of things?
Yeah. Well, your audience will definitely let you know.
Okay.
You know, or lack thereof. If you're not getting any feedback or you're not getting any views, no subscribers, then that's basically telling you something's not working. You need to go back to the drawing board and figure something out. For the value, yes, it must be valuable. Your content has to hit them inside and be like, oh my gosh, I didn't know that. Or like, oh my, like I love learning about this, but it also needs to be engaging. And this is where a lot of people, they either follow too much to one side where it's like so valuable, like so much information, but it feels like a college lecture. Like there's no engaging part about it. And that's why they're not getting people to click on their videos, is because you still have to make it entertaining. It is social media. And then you have the other people who are like, you know, doesn't matter if there's any value in it, I'll just do whatever I want. And yes, maybe it is engaging people, it's clickbaity, whatever, but you won't build a very loyal fan base or audience, because the people that stick by you for years and years and years, like your audience, they're loyal to you because of who you are, your personality, not necessarily the content. At first it is the content because that's what draws them in, but then they're like, oh, I like this person. Like, I want to follow their journey as a person. So if you're looking to be in content creation for a very long time, you need to have a mix of both, where you are providing that value and you're still engaging people. It's still entertaining.
That makes a lot of sense. So try to find that happy medium between engaging and entertaining your audience, but also teaching them something valuable. And just focusing on the response and the feedback from your audience to know whether or not what you're giving to them truly is valuable to them themselves.
Yeah, exactly.
And what if someone wants to follow your advice, or not really your advice because you didn't tell them to say that they should do it, but you did it? What if someone wants to build a business plan for their channel so they could treat it as seriously as you did and prioritize it the way that you did? How would you have I want to know, how would I go about building a business plan for my YouTube channel? Yeah. What are just some of the things I should focus on?
Well, definitely you need a mission, right? If you don't have a why you're doing something or what your goal is for your content, then you're just going to start posting random stuff and it's not going to be cohesive. It's not going to make sense. And then you're going to, lose sight of why. So definitely have your purpose in there. Have who you're trying to target, your audience. Maybe it's people who are very unlike yourself, and that's okay. But you have to understand those people's wants, their pain points, what they want to know. So doing some possibly market research, watching other creators who have an audience of similar demographics as the ones that you're trying to target, and competition. It's good to acknowledge people who are in similar niches as you, people who are doing similar stuff, so that not only you can learn from people ahead of you, but also so that you can differentiate yourself. Because you need to ask yourself, why would somebody click on my video? Why should they listen to me and not somebody else who has more subscribers, who is more credible?
Yes.
Right? That is a very, very honest question you need to ask yourself. Like, what is different about you? What do you offer?
Right.
So that is always something that I try to frame my videos around, or at least my delivery, is, understanding that everybody is unique and you need to tap into that, because that is something you cannot sell or teach.
Yeah. Honestly, I think that last piece that you mentioned is so important, because it's such a humbling question to ask yourself, right? I just started putting out short form content very recently, and in the beginning, I never asked myself that question. And I remember asking myself, why should someone watch my content over Alex Hormozi's, especially if we're talking about the same topic? And when you ask yourself that question, the easy answer that saves mental capacity is they probably shouldn't. Hormozi's more qualified. They should probably just go watch him. But that would have just stopped me in my tracks. I thought about it long enough to come to an answer that, look, I'm not more qualified than Alex Hormozi. I don't even think that I'm more valuable than Alex Hormozi. But I do know that I'm coming in with a very different angle, because Alex Hormozi has already made multi-millions of dollars. And although we could be talking about the same topic, I'm talking about it as I learn it and as I implement it. And I'm also exposing you to the journey along the entire way. One of the things that Hormozi always says is that he wishes he documented his entire journey versus just having to talk about it at the tail end. So not that answer, it only matters to me, not anyone else. But coming to that answer just gave me more power towards my content. I do want to ask, though, when it comes to the business plan, knowing your mission, knowing your target audience, knowing what type of content you're focusing on, to not confuse everyone, do you think you have to have that all figured out before you start?
Oh, no.
Yeah.
You can definitely figure it out while you're doing it. I didn't make the business plan right off the bat when I started. I honestly made it, a few months ago, probably back in the fall. But I think you need to have it established eventually, and you can always tweak it, but, to keep you on the right track. Because it's very easy, just like when we're having conversation, to go off on tangents and then start, making like random videos, but you have to realize your audience came to your channel for a specific reason. They saw something they liked, and so they want to see more of that.
Yeah.
But if you know, start doing stuff that's like very unrelated or that people don't really want to see, you're going to lose a lot of that. So it's very, very important to have your why you're doing it, to prevent burnout, to understand your audience so that you can tailor your content for them, as well as, you know, understanding your niche or the industry and your competition, so that you don't fall into turning into somebody else slowly, because that can also happen. It's like you set out to be different, but then you're slowly becoming like somebody else or everybody else.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Cause like, I just wanted to clarify that, cause I think like you have to figure those things out. There's a ceiling without figuring those things out. Even if you get lucky, one of your videos go viral and you get however many subscribers, you'll never grow consistently unless you figure those things out. But if you don't start because you haven't figured those things out, that's a fucking excuse. Like me, for example, with my short form content, and you've probably seen some of my reels and stuff, but I haven't really figured out exactly like what I'm talking about in my content. Really, it's just been learning out loud, right? Like whatever topic it is, as long as I feel like it could be valuable to like a universal truth and a valuable to like a mass amount of people, I'll just make a video about it. But over time, since I've started, I've gotten so much closer to that with every single day. But if you never start, you'll also never figure it out. So that's all I wanted to clarify, is because I don't want anyone watching this to think that they have to answer all those questions and that's why they haven't started. Start, and then that's what creates the answer to all those questions, because you also got to let your audience decide what they want from you.
Absolutely.
Right? So yeah, I think this was extremely valuable.